All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show, we have Ivan Estrada. He is with Douglas Elliman in Los Angeles, and he is not only a broker, he also has a CPA. Ivan, thank you for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me. This is fun. This is fun.
Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, you're also an author, but thank you. So where do we get started? I want to give a little bit more about you, and then I'm going to let you fill in the blanks. But you are a top broker, not just in LA, but in the nation. You are also an author of a book. If you'll show us the book that's off to the side. This is a bestseller.
Found it
Brand
at
with
where Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, any store really. They're all over the world too. They're in Denmark, Mexico, London, Australia.
What's a bestseller, right?
Yeah.
We've had an author on the show, Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference, and we've had a lot of top real estate agents, but we've only had actually no, I just caught myself. We've had some authors and real estate agents, but you're one of the few. We've had Jack Cotton, who wrote
Love
books
Jack.
on luxury real estate, but now we've also got you with Brand with Purpose, which I love. So tell us a little bit tell us about the book first, because that'll tell us about you. And then we've got to get your life story, how this all came together.
Absolutely. So Brand with Purpose, I actually started writing it about 3.5 years ago. And the reason I wrote it was branding and marketing for me has been my biggest, I guess, the fuel that has propelled the engine of success for me. This was something that I learned very early on. As a kid, I was signed to a record I was a singer. I was assigned to a record company at 12 years old, had management, William Morris. I mean, some of the big top heavy hitters here in Los Angeles. And I learned how important it was to be a brand, because in order to be a successful anything in this world, you have to become a brand that people respect, that trust, and that people love. And from my experience as a professional singer, and also from working from USC, which is where I went to college, and then working at an accounting firm where as an auditor and a tax person, I had to pretty much know the ins and outs of some of these major corporations such as Abercrombie and Fitch, Gucci, Prada, and know why are they successful? What makes them successful? And so this book was a culmination of everything that I've learned, and realizing that in order to build an authentic brand, it really goes back to your youth, all the things that you love doing, all the things that you learned. In the book, I also interviewed Belinda Carlisle, who's an incredible, the Go-Go's, right? She's built an incredible brand, the Princess of Sierra Leone, Mark Batson, who's Grammy Award-winning producer to Beyonce, Alicia Keys, and Dr. Dre. I mean, and then also smaller companies like Compartis Chocolates and Sprinkles Cupcakes. So it's a variety of different industries, large corporations, smaller mid-tier firms, and also mom and pop shops. And we show why they're successful as brands. And it all goes back to a foundation and the principles and values that they put in place in order to be successful down the road. And it's all in this book. So that's why I wrote Brand with Purpose, because you got to have a purpose and an intention in life and in your business in order to be successful.
So first of all, your success in being a real estate agent, I'm like so loaded with questions, by the way, but summing up what you just said. So your success in being a real estate agent was about, summing it up was a brand, being a brand that people fall in love with. Well, when you create a brand that people fall in love with, to do that, you talked about foundation, you talked about purpose, and you talked about what else? I think it was a structure.
The values, principles.
Values, yeah. Values, principles, and foundation.
Right.
And so values. So if you've got your value, I know my values, and I have my principles, and I've got a strong foundation. That is the formula.
That is the formula. But the problem is that most people, they know that's the formula, but they don't actually input what needs to be inputted, right? Like for example, for me, I had to put it out in writing what my brand what it stood for. You have to put it in writing, and you have to put it up visually up in a wall. So you can remind yourself of who you are, right? This is why I'm in this business, especially when it comes to real estate agents. Why am I in this business? what am I going to stand out for? Why are, especially if you're here being in Beverly Hills as a luxury agent, why is someone going to come to me instead of someone else at my company or at another firm? Like, what makes me special? What makes people want to work with me over and over and over again? Because, in this business as brokers, we rely on those referrals. We rely on those clients who come to us time and time again, because that's what really compounds our business year after year, decade after decade. I mean, look at people like Joyce Ray and Jade Mills, and they've been around for decades. And their biggest secret was just treat your client with respect, have them trust you. Once you have a client's trust, you have them for life. And you just
Respect.
have
It's all about respect and trust. What do you think it is? Because it's like you just said, it's all, first of all, foundations, values, principles. Those are pretty clean and clear cut. That's not fancy. It's not hard to figure out your foundation, your values and principles. And then beyond that, from that comes respect and trust. What do you think? Why is that? That sounds so simple, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, it is. Well, look, as salespeople, and then this is, I think, part of the reason why I look at real estate very differently from other people. So I had mentioned I went to school at USC, Marshall School of Business and Leventhal School of Accounting. The mindset that I acquired as for being a CPA when I worked at the accounting firm was, we're here as fiduciaries and to provide the best insight and information so that our clients can make the best decisions, right? And so when you have that mindset that this property that I'm selling, right, it's not about me, it's about the client. So what can I do to facilitate not just the transfer of ownership to the property, but provide the best possible qualitative and quantitative information to make sure that my clients know that this is the best fit for them. Because it's easy to say, what do you think about the kitchen? Do you love the backyard? I mean, these are all great points to point out. But at the end of the day, regardless of where you are in the country and what state you work in, real estate to still a lot of people is their retirement, right? And I've always looked at that that way. It's a financial investment as much as it is an emotional buy. It all comes down to numbers, and I always want to make sure that my clients are making the best decision for them that works for them. And so I think just going back to my mindset, that's how I was taught. It wasn't about selling a property. It was about giving information that is useful so that my client can make their own best decision for themselves without me trying to sell a property, because I never do that. I will never, yeah, this is great for you. How do I know that? I don't know that this is great for you. I've just met you, right? Let me give you all the information and let me give you my insight, all of my research and all of my background, and also all the knowledge that I have of the last 14 years that I've been in real estate. Does this make sense, right? You put it up in front of them. Does this make sense for you? And if it doesn't, then this isn't the right property for you.
Exactly. Foundation, values, and principles. What do you mean by foundation? What do you mean by values? And what do you mean by principles? Because we may all have that in our minds of what that is, but how would you define it for everybody?
So for everyone, it's going to be completely different, right? Like for me, my foundation to my business is the foundation of who I am as a person, because my business is me. I am the business and the business is me. So it's like a complete mirror image of who I am as a person. And so my foundation for me is comprised of what makes me special, right? As a broker, right? Like for example, my CPA, which I'm not trying to provide accounting related advice to anyone, but it's part of who I've become along the way as a businessman to be able to help my clients along the process, right? So my foundation is made out of, my CPA license, my educational background, all the training that I've acquired throughout the years, not just actual going to conferences and company training, but also the knowledge that I've acquired through experience, right? Because that experience is what's really set my foundation of as a business owner. Because all of us in real estate, I always tell my agents this: stop seeing yourself as an agent. You are a business owner. You are an entrepreneur. And once you can make that mind shift, you're going to see your business very differently, right? You have to run it as a business owner. So those things are comprised of that, what comprises my foundation, because that's what's going to keep everything else Like, I was telling you before how I always tell people, look at a brand like a skyscraper, like the foundation is made out of all, what we just talked about, your
Mm-hmm.
experiences, your background, your knowledge. And then each floor in that skyscraper is all the experiences, everything that you have to add to who you are as that person. And if the foundation
Mm-hmm.
is cracked and you don't really know what makes you special or why you're doing, right? It goes back to your why. The foundation is going to fall apart and your skyscraper is going to come right back down. So that's what makes my foundation. My values are, honesty, respect, being honest. These are the things that I picked up from youth. This is what I learned from my family. This is what I learned from my mom and dad at a very young age. Is, honest, especially in real estate, we have to be honest. We have to be respectful. Um, it's funny that these are very simple and we think that everyone in our business, not just in our business, but in general in business, like people follow these, but do they?
Oh yeah. Well, it's almost like there's this idea that success or what I want to be is something outside of me, rather than if that's where I want to get, who is it that I need to become? And
Yeah.
every time, res- you've got to be a better person if you want more in your life. If you want more out here, you've got to adjust what's in here, or it's just not going to happen.
You hit the nail on the head. If you want more out here, you have to look inward in order for that to then project, right? We're all a projection of everything else that's out in the universe. So it's like, if you want to be better out here, if you want to project yourself better out here, you need to start here. The work starts here.
You can't fake out here. You can't trick reality.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to when, going to the foundations, principles, and values is this is it's interpersonal work that everyone has to do. It's like literally I tell people you got to grab a mirror and really look at yourself. Right? When you really look at yourself, then you can easily fill these out. But again, I'm putting myself in this category years ago in my 20s when I was very insecure and I thought I had to be a certain type of human being in order to be successful in business and especially in luxury real estate because I didn't grow up. My dad is still a janitor out of school. Very proud of him. I love him, a hard worker. And I thought I had to lie about who I was in order to be successful here because my parents weren't part of a country club or part of the scene and grew up in Beverly Hills. And I wasn't being my authentic self. And I think when I really put that mirror in front of me and saw who I was, and I thought, this isn't the right formula for success because again, it goes back to doing the personal work out in here to get the results that you want to hear.
It's kind of like now I'm going to be like the mom, and I never do this on the show, but with your kids, it's like the best for your children. Do you have kids?
No, not
Well,
yet.
if you have them, or if you ever do,
One day.
or this was my thing. I was like, everybody's got their idea. I felt like especially the generation, we're probably about the same age. There's a certain way you're just supposed to be, and then you check your boxes for being good, and that's just not real.
No.
And I remember having my kids and thinking, they were born and created through God or whatever you want to call it, but something with a lot more. Yes, it was my body, and that was cool. But whatever they're wired to be, I can't even fathom. And so, in that, just giving them the environment to be the best people they could possibly be. And back to the point of your conversation is you being the best you can be. And the funny thing is, when you look at who you are and you think I need to be somebody else, the reality is your circumstances, your environment, and what you were born into is exactly what makes you so awesome. And you're in many ways an anomaly, which just gives you, it's like what makes you different is what makes you amazing. Not just you, but everybody. Like that's your stuff. That's what makes you shine.
Exactly.
That's it. Now, don't want to miss out on the principles, but at what point was there something that happened where you were like, you know what, all of these things I'm trying to hide or pretend I'm not because I think I have to be someone else, not more of who I really am. Where and how did that shift happen?
So, well, one, it was, it's a two-part question. So the first part was, I had a client up here in the Hollywood Hills area, and this was a client that I had gotten really close to, and we were just having a conversation, and he asked me about my past and who I was and where my parents grew up. And I think we had gotten so close where I was honest with him, because most people I wouldn't really talk about it because I thought they're not going to want to do business with me, because I learned that people with wealth only want to do business with other people with wealth because of trust, right? They want people just like them. And this gentleman, I told him about my dad being, my mom and dad immigrants from Mexico. My dad was a janitor, my mom was a seamstress, everything that they did to be the American dream that they wanted to be in this country. And his face lit up and he said, and this guy's worth millions. And he said, I love that. So from that, now you're here, you've created all these accomplishments. And he said, I came to this country with nothing. He's like, me, my parents, and my two siblings, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I really wanted to work hard for my parents. And we connected on this other layer where I thought, oh my God, he loved the fact that I told him that I literally, we came from, pretty much not much, right? And that made me really realize, I was like, wait, this story actually, instead of repelling people, it shows people what's possible and what I've been able to do with not a lot of resources. Like, I wasn't supposed to leave my zip code. Most of my friends in high school still lived there and didn't really do much. And I was able to, surpass that. And so I thought, I was like, wow, I need to share this with other people, because it connected me to him at a much deeper level. And because of that, he had more respect for me and said, I want to do more. Who else can I refer you to? How many more clients can I help? Can I assist you with referring them to you? Because, it's like they say, how you do something is how you do everything. And if they see, right, consistency and that you're hungry and most importantly, authentic and proud, right? It's that authenticity with him that allowed that trust to build. And once you build that trust with a client, especially in real estate, you have a client for life.
Exactly. So you remind me of so many things, but one, Julie Fopple, I don't know if you know Julie.
Oh, I love Julie, yeah.
So she was just on the show and she said, remember, our clients wanted us to be as excited for them as they are. Our clients, 90% of the uber wealthy are self-made. Mm-hmm. And that was on a completely different topic, but it correlates to being excited with them for what they're doing and authentic in that, but also just authentic in who you are, because we are all people. Mm-hmm. And usually the wealth, like the uber wealth, when they're self-made, they appreciate that. So, and not even that that's the point about how to like shift, whatever, play that game, but it's just a truth. It's just, maybe that goes into principles. So we talked about values, or foundation, values, and then how do you define principles?
Oh God, for me, it's like the principles of how I run my life. It's a combination of different things. Because that's a good question. Because for me, they're like interchangeable. Like my principles and values I would say, are very interconnected. Right? They both kind of run together in order to push the train, right? The ship, the engine.
They're kind of maybe an outcome of your foundation and your values.
Huh?
They're kind of the outcome of foundation and values.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's unwavering in how you do things and what you do? Yeah. I'm making this stuff up, but that's what's like, I'm listening, and that's what's coming.
Yeah, it's kind of like, the output of what comes in from all of the knowledge, your history, your past experiences that could have been traumatic, right? Because I think also a lot of the experiences that I went through that personally were traumatic for me were kind of what built my foundation, and how I either used it to propel me was and to achieve the type of principles and values that I wanted to live my life by, right? Which, look, when we go back to my foundation of when I was telling people that I was born and raised in Beverly Hills, that my parents were someone else, that was a shaky foundation. What principles and values was I living by? Not honesty, because I wasn't being honest. I wasn't even being honest with myself, let alone being honest with other clients, right? And it's a thing that as humans, when someone's not being honest with you, I can always, my gut, right? My subconscious, there's always that gut feeling when you say, I don't know what it's about that person, but I just don't have a good gut feeling, right?
Mhm.
There's a good,
Exactly, because people are buying, and it's funny how the more money they're spending when you're talking about luxury, the higher the expectations, because of those are the used to the things they're that's what they're used to, the level of service. But also everybody's coming at them for something. They see it all day long, all day long.
all day long.
The best way to get someone to run away from you is to just go after them and chase them, and they will run away. Just try. Right? Animal, people are animals too, or animals are people too, but whoever, chase them, and most of the time they'll run away or they'll see you as a threat and attack you. It's
Right.
not necessarily a tactic. So you were an artist, you were a singer, you're very artistic, you've written a book on branding, you're a real estate agent, but somewhere in there you were a CPA too. Like,
Mhm.
how does that work and why?
And why? So I love music. I always loved singing. It was a way of how I express myself artistically, and it's where I just felt like spiritually, like that's where I felt like my soul would shine. Just being on stage and being able to connect with people at a musical level, because I think music does create connection with people.
Yeah.
I always grew up that kid who just felt like he never fit in, and I lacked connection with people. I just felt like I was always looking from the outside in from a window, right? And I never felt like there was just that I didn't have much in common with people. I always was like that as a kid. I was the loner. And I always felt like music connected me with people. And I loved doing it. And my parents would take me to auditions and TV shows. And I was a very shy kid. But I did get assigned, I got signed to a label here in Los Angeles and had worked with some of the best managers who worked with people like Janet Jackson. And, I learned a lot. Didn't We got very far, created my first CD, went on tour, but unfortunately it didn't work out. But it's funny how life works, and I'll get to that point. But after that, my dad said, look, you got to go to school. Education's important. And he always wanted to be an accountant. Never got to do it. He had to provide for the family, so he got a job at school as a janitor, and he always read accounting books at night, and he always wanted to go back to school. I was never able about he never had the opportunity to do it. And my way of paying him back for all the time that he gave me while I was signed to that label, going with me to all the auditions, on tour, to the recording studio, this was my gift to him, was getting my CPA, because I got it for him. I got it for us. And I did it for 3 years. Unfortunately, it wasn't my calling, but everything happens for a reason. I learned a lot. And shortly after, I realized this is just not my purpose. I need to do something else. And real estate was one of those things that always attracted me, but also that it had a lot of the character traits that I felt I was very strong at, which was, well, one, I was great at math. I've always been really good at numbers. Two, I was great with people. When I worked at Deloitte for audit and tax, I got to learn a lot on how to talk to the CFO, how to talk to the CEO, how to talk to their COO, how to ask the right questions, how to provide the right reports. And then marketing and branding, which I learned a little bit more at USC, but living it, because I was a brand. And so
Yeah.
all of these things really came together. And so now that, I have the book, Brand with Video, and my video branding course, Brand with Video. And I just finished my TED Talk this Saturday on branding. And so,
Yeah.
you
We've got
know,
to talk about that too.
yeah. And so all of these things that have happened in my life, it's just really taken me onto this point. And going back to being on stage, I still do a lot of public speaking. I did several this year. And at the end, they always ask me to sing. They know that I can sing and that I have a background in it.
Well, you're going to have to
Now I'm on
sing.
stage motivating people and inspiring
Yeah.
people to do better and being authentic about who they are as people. And then I get to, kind of hammer that in with a really good song and kind of make that connection. And so it's funny how everything kind of goes around in a
Well,
circle.
you've also lived a life of major transformation, because I've just written down three things. So one thing was you were born, to a family that wasn't that you weren't expected to be a top real estate agent, not just in Beverly Hills, but in the nation of luxury real estate, and an author of a bestseller book, and a public speaker, a renowned public speaker. None of that. So you've surpassed all of those expectations. Number one. Number two, you talked about you got into a job of being a CPA, so you've already kind of broken beyond but what you were supposed to do. But in the challenge of just getting there, and you get there and you still say, I've gotten most people, it's human nature to get to that and be afraid of losing what you've obtained, especially when it's you have to overcome that much. And you still had the courage and the capacity to break beyond that. And the other thing that we didn't touch on, and we didn't speak deeply on it, but you said as a kid, I felt like I was looking from the outside in. And now you're older, even your CPA job where you weren't it was with Deloitte, right?
Yeah.
So you're a CPA that's a big challenging, like it's a big deal to get a job there. But anyway, you were connected and you were great with people. So what is the key to these transformations? A lot of people just want one, and you've made three that I've figured out just in the few minutes we've spoken.
What is the key? Why did I do it?
Or how?
I mean, there's so many, there's a lot of things that contributed to that, for me making those moves. But deep down, there's something that my dad said early on in my career and in my life. And he said, you can have all the money and success that you want, but that's not going to bring you happiness, right? Like, he's also very spiritual. It's like, you got to follow your dharma, right? Like your purpose on this planet. And for me, I've always felt like fulfillment is very important for me, and following my heart and my gut has always been something that I learned early on again to do, even if it hurts. And that means cutting certain relationships out of my life, personal, family, friends, employees, whatever it is. If my heart and my gut says it's time to go and time to move on, I have to follow it. And the first time it was very tough because the insecurity set in, am I making the wrong choice here? What if I decide I made the wrong choice? What if I'm acting out of fear? What if I'm not thinking correctly? Like all the what ifs, right? And once I did it once and I saw the transformation that happened in my life, like as humans, I wanted to do it again. And I know at 38, there's going to be more. There's going to be more transformation. There's going to be more hard decisions that I'm going to have to make that are going to hurt my soul, right? Because I go back to being very spiritual, that I'm not going to want to make, that are going to hurt at the moment. But I know long term, it's what I need to do. And I've always thought that I guess it comes from being a little bit, in a way, one of my mentors had said, you got to be a little selfless sometimes. And yes, it's not always making the best decision that's for everyone. You got to make the best decision that's for yourself, but at the same time that it's what your heart desires, and you just got to follow your heart. And I know it sounds very cliche.
It's right back to your foundation.
Yeah.
If you can't be the foundation of who you are, how can you serve everyone around you to your best capacity and theirs anyway?
Exactly. Yeah.
So there you go. So listening to all of this, but did you grow up in Beverly Hills or LA?
I grew up in Eagle Rock. It's like
okay.
Like Eastern, it's like 35 minutes from Eagle Rock. From Beverly Hills.
So you were a CPA, and tell us a little bit about why and how you really, like, when was that transformation of, okay, I'm going to be a real estate agent? Like, what did that look like? And why and how did you do it? You went from CPA to real estate agent.
Yeah. So
really successful career. Real estate agents back then were what we were supposed to do because we didn't have anything else to do, but you were already very successful.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So with the accounting, year one, I said, I'm going to be the best CPA. I'm going to make it to partner in less than 9 years. I was good technically, but also I was great with people. I was great with to be a good partner at a big firm, you need to get the business. You need to know how to mingle with the clients and be able to also do the work, right? And a lot of people in that industry are either one or the other. So trying to find kind of that hybrid was very difficult. And so I told myself, I'm going to make it happen no matter what. Now, 2 years into I just felt like something wasn't right. Deep down inside me, I said, something's not right here. I'm not happy. I'm working 85 hours a week, 90 hours a week, and I'm good at what I do, but this isn't what I'm meant to be doing. I feel like I'm in a cage. I would tell people my cubicle feels like a cage. I'm starting to get depressed. And, being that we're being honest, right? Or always, I've never been depressed. And I felt, and this is undiagnosed, I felt like I was going into a depression.
Wow.
And this was about my 3rd year into it. And I sat down with my dad and I told him, my mom said, this is life. Like, I love her to death, but some of her way of thinking is probably not the best, but she's life. This is what you do, Ivan. Like, it's not always going to be, rainbows and butterflies. This is what you've got to do. You went to school to be an accountant. You got your CPA and you worked your butt off for it. What else are you going to do? You just got to keep going. And I feel like that's the mindset of a lot of people. Well, I put in all this work to be a doctor and I don't want to be a doctor, but I have nowhere else to go. Right. And I know a lot of people like that. I know a lot of people who are in careers that they don't want to be in, but they've got kids, they've got priorities, they've got responsibilities, but they're miserable. Right. And so my dad sat me down and said, look, if you're not happy, I'm not happy. What do you want to do? And I'm like, well, mom's going to get upset. Who cares about what mom says? Do what makes you happy. And I said, I've always wanted to go into real estate. Like, real estate it's one of those things that I know I can change, because I was one of the first real estate agents to do video like 14 years ago when no one else was doing it. I said to my dad, I'm going to change how this industry is done. I'm going to do it. And he's like, and I believe you will. And it was a week after where I left the CPA firm and I got a job at Coldwell Banker on Sunset here. And I worked at Coldwell Banker 7 to 8 hours a day. And then I got a job as a server, and I lied to get this job because I had never served tables before at a company called it's in downtown. I forgot the name of it, but and I worked there every night. Every night I served tables for 5-6 hours, and every morning I was bright and early at the office, did open houses every Saturday and Sunday for about 5 years, including holidays. And I told myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful in this career. And I have it in the book at the end. It's the last chapter. And it says, I think the last chapter says, it's my mom saying, don't worry, one day you're going to have a lot of pair of shoes. I had a pair of work shoes and a pair of tennis shoes. That's all that I had. And my work shoes had a hole at the bottom of the shoe, and I had taped it up with duct tape because I was door knocking every single day throughout every different neighborhood. And I couldn't afford to buy new shoes because I had, it was my waiting job. I had rent to pay, marketing expenses. I didn't want to ask my parents for money because I knew that they didn't have it and they couldn't help me. So, when you know, well, what you want to do in your life and you find that purpose and that passion, nothing will stop you, right? For me, not even a ripped up pair of shoes. I didn't care. I was going to duct tape them. And I was like, I'm going to keep going because I know that there's a light at the end of this tunnel for me, because I know that this is where I need to be and this is where I'm going to go.
That is awesome. That was just such a great story. And just, the gift of our circumstances, the gift of the challenges we're given, give us exactly what we need to get there. And they're the questions we get asked early on, or it's like, well, do you really want this? It's up to us to answer, and you had to really want it. And you talked about being depressed, it's funny because depression is a scary thing, and you don't know that until you've really faced it. And it's like, oh, this is what people are talking about. And what's interesting, I love what you say, and I think it is relevant, to especially real estate agents. I think we're a special breed, even though I'm not a real estate agent anymore, everybody. But I'm a coach and a podcast host officially. But anyway, is when and this was actually when I was in Beverly Hills recently, and I was listening to a speaker, and I'm so sorry I cannot remember her name, because she said all of these things that are diagnosed and all of these things that are said to be just, it's just how you are actually a normal, like being depressed as an adult. It's a normal response. It's a human response to an environment that is not healthy, to negative, I forgot what the words were she used. And the other thing, but that just, and you somehow said, no, I'm not going to accept this. Life is short. It's more than this, and I have a purpose. What is it? And the other thing was you did really hard things. And it's funny how the more hard things you do, the necessary hard things you do, the easier, and not just easier, but better that life gets. And the more you don't face the hard things and you just kind of opt out for what's easy, the more difficult life gets.
Exactly. And honestly, I would, to all your listeners, this is something that I did and that helps me and that I continue to do. It's a list that's ongoing, is create a list of the things that scare you.
Oh,
The things that scare you, and start with the easy one first, right? And go and do it, check it off one by one, right? Because I think trying to start with the hardest one up front, you're not going to do it. Make the list that scares you. And the more, as you start crossing those things off, you start realizing, wait, I can do this. I got this. And trust me, a lot of the things you're not going to be able to do alone. You might need the help of a family member, of a relative, of a therapist, of a coach, whatever it is. None of us are in this world alone, right? None of us, we're all human beings, and we love having that interaction with one another, that pact that we are. And so know that you don't have to do this alone, and that we all need someone at some point. And if you can start crossing off those things that scare you, right, little by little, one by one, you start realizing, wait, I've got more courage than I thought. I'm more fearless than I thought. And then you're going to want to do more and more. And it's a continuous list. You've got to keep going with the list, right? Because then,
well, what's on your list? Okay, go ahead.
oh, one thing that's on my list that I haven't done is I've skydived.
That's exactly what kind of mom.
It was something that scared me, but I've done it twice and I love it. One thing that I was scared of was mountain climbing, because heights still scare me. And I did that about a month ago, and I did it really well. And I was like, yes, I got this. And again, that doesn't relate back to business, because climbing a mountain is not business.
It does, because it's your mindset.
Yeah, but when I got back down, I remember I had a podcast later that night. I was on fire. I felt like I could do everything. It pushes you to do other things, because you said that big thing really scared me. And once you conquer that big thing, you're like, that was nothing. And then all the other little things that you were scared of just melts away. They're like nothing, right? They just kind of disappear.
It's so true. I just love that. So a couple of questions about being an agent, and then I'm going to segue into our final three. But when you became a real estate agent, so you had the courage, you said, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be an agent. Now, once you got into it, especially because you've had such a dynamic life, from the creative aspect of being a singer to now you went to school and were very disciplined and a CPA, and now you're a real estate agent. What was your biggest surprise? What's the biggest unexpected thing that happened or that you learned when you became an agent?
I think the biggest thing that I learned, well, one, I had come in thinking, well, I went to USC, which is one of the best schools here. I have a CPA license. I know everything about branding and video. This is going to be a cinch. It's going to be easy. I got this. It wasn't easy. I think when real estate agents go into this business, because you're like, well, I'm good at sales and I'm good at negotiating, I'm good at that, and so I'm right off the gate, I'm going to be a star. I didn't realize how much work and how many years of sacrifice I had to put into this business in order to be what I guess you would call semi-successful. It took years to get to be able to like feel comfortable with like, oh, I'm paying my rent, I got groceries taken care of. I mean, at least for me personally, it took at least 3 to 4 years and I thought, oh, I got this down. I went to a great school. I have great connections. I'm going to get clients from Deloitte, from USC, from McGladrey, from other CPAs. I got this. I had figured it all out, and boom, in my face, pie in the face. It's not that way, right? There's some people that are lucky, right? And there's a lot of luck here and there, but to be lucky in this business and in any business, right? We think of celebrities like, oh yeah, they became a hit overnight. No, they've been working their ass off for years, performing at every dive club, dive bar in the city, writing music for the last 7 years. No, it wasn't an overnight success. It was years of success. And to me, even though people said it's going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of years, I was like, no, I got all the tools that I need in order to be successful. It's not always about having the right tools. It's about having the right mindset. And also for me, knowing what I was getting myself into, which it takes, it takes years. And I'm still to this point, 14 years into it, I always tell myself, I don't know anything, right? The more I know, the more I don't know. And so the key for this business to be successful is consistency, patience, and knowing that if this is what you want to do, especially if this is a message for the newer agents, you've got to give it your all every single day, every single week, and every couple and the first couple of years that you're in this business, because it's needed and necessary, especially in today's real estate world.
Oh, what a great statement. I mean, that's such a great statement, and it's so true. What was there a moment that when you realized all of this, like it's so funny because that's what so many people say. Stephen Ferrara, an agent in New York, was so funny. He's got a great story. He's like, oh yeah, I had it all figured out, had the spreadsheets, all of my friends were going to hire me. It was all rainbows and butterflies until it wasn't.
Right.
But and I love that because you meet agents and it's not to be condescending, or it's just the reality of this business. And you don't know what it's like until you've done it.
Right.
What was your or was there, or how would you say, you get into the business, you kind of go, oh, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you shift? What was the moment where you were like, okay, now I've got this? What did that look like? And how did you make that shift?
Well, this is like a plug for you and for what you do. I got a coach. My real estate coach shined the light to the reality of, he kind of put, I guess he took off the veil, right? And showed me the reality of this business. And that, yes, you might have all the right tools, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful overnight. It takes consistency. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of networking. It takes a lot of systems. It takes a lot of being able to spin multiple plates at the same time without dropping them, and knowing and having faith that it will produce a return, right? Because not everything provides a return. It's having that faith. And so for me, when I got my real estate coach, who for me has become the older brother I've never had, the connection between my coach and I is more than just business. Like, he's my older brother. We watch out for each other. And he made me believe in myself when I did it. He made me see the reality of things when I didn't want to. It was sometimes the truth hurts, right? Honesty hurts sometimes. And he's very honest, and having a coach who can really shine the light to the reality of not just the business, but your situation, right? Because I think sometimes when you're newer in the business, you have this idea of how it works. I had no idea, right? I really had no idea until I had a coach who really helped me put together the blueprints to success, and really helped me put a roadmap that wasn't going to be an overnight roadmap, because there is no silver bullet to be successful in this business. It's consistent work over and over again, year after year after year, because once you figured it out, yeah, you maybe figured it out for the next couple of months, but things are going to change again. So as long as you're open to changing all the time, and like I always tell people, I'm like Madonna, I'm always reinventing myself, right? You got to keep reinventing yourself all the time.
Well, it's like you've got to grow.
Yep, you got to grow.
So I love that, because something you said I think is powerful. 95% of the people in this, I think it's only in the first 2 years don't even make it.
Yeah.
And I think it probably has a lot to do with seeing that reality. And for you, when you saw that reality, is that what it is that keeps most people from this business? Is they not finally, but they see the reality and go, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
And for
It's
you,
not like-
what kept you in? Yeah.
They realize that it's not like TV, right? Where you can just cut deals on the phone and
Right.
make
It's just not like that.
it go.
Editing's powerful.
Right. Yeah, I think it is that reality. I've had interns before do a 6-month intern or 2-month internship, whatever it might be, and I showed them. I lift the veil, and they look at my calendar, and they're like, "What? That's your calendar?" I said, "Yeah, that's my calendar. That's what it takes in order to be successful in this business. And if you're not willing to do that, because there's people, I work a lot, but there's people who work more than I do, right? They're running teams of 100 people, 200 people, 300 people. This is what it takes. And I think why, for me, it's kept me here. It goes back to your why and why we love this business, right? I think if you're coming in with the wrong intention, right? I'm here to make money. You're not going to make money because that's not the point of this business. The money is an output of the value that you add to your clients and this business as a whole, right? Because not only am I adding value to my clients, but I'm adding value to the real estate industry by helping other agents who are part of my referral network, by speaking at conferences and helping other agents. So how much value are you willing to give? Because we get paid by the value. So if you're willing to give a lot of value, then the output is you're going to do well financially. But if you just want to make the money and not provide any value, you're running up against the wall. It's not going to work for you.
When you make a great point, it's like, I think sometimes people, especially if you're, and maybe not to make a judgment, and then we are going to do the final 3 questions, but people look at a situation and they say, okay, this is what I'm going to get out of, there's the pie and I want my part of the pie, right? I want my part, but it's your contribution to the pie that creates the output of what you receive back. You actually give more than you receive, and yet somehow you still receive more than you ever expected when you really just engage and become a part of it and have a purpose.
Right.
Final 3 questions. Do you need a break or anything? Or I know somebody's talking to you. Okay, final 3. Number 1, what would you say, if you had to narrow it down to one thing, is the greatest resource in creating your success?
My greatest resource would have to be my coach, my real estate coach. Biggest resource ever.
And if you could sum it up into how and why, how or why?
Because my coach pushes me to be the best version of myself. I'm not competing against other brokers. I'm competing against myself to be the best version of myself. And also, he gives me a different perspective. I think magic happens when you can combine more than 2 perspectives, right? Because I only know so much and he only knows so much, but sometimes just those 2 ideas can formulate an incredible formula for success. And so I always appreciate his insight and most importantly, his honesty. Because I think in this business, in any business, there has to be honesty with clients and most importantly, honesty with yourself. And that's what he provides for me.
So true. It's all about, if you're frustrated with where you're getting, perhaps how you perceive reality and what it is are off. It's like your map of the world and what the world is are not the same, and that's why you're just not getting there. So it's necessary, or like, not like that's bad, that's actually the opportunity. Next question. I usually say, if there's a book that's changed your life, what is that book? Just one. But there's a book that's changed your life. It's the one you wrote.
Exactly.
So if you would take for us, when people I want to see the book one more time for everybody. So if you would, so everybody, Brand with Purpose by Ivan Estrada. If there's one thing people come back to you and say, this is why it changed my life, what is the biggest takeaway you hear people get from this book? Your book.
I think the biggest takeaway that I've gotten, because this book is, the people that I interview in this book are men, women, straight, gay, Asian, Black, Filipino. I wanted to make sure that when people read this book that they could see themselves in this book. And the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from people has been, your book helped me be seen, and it showed me that there's an opportunity for me. And for me, that's very special because growing up, I didn't feel that way, especially in my neighborhood. So it's, for me, that's been the biggest thing is showing everyone out there that they matter and that it's possible for them to get any type of amount of success. And that was one of the biggest, for me, why I wrote this book. Telling the untold stories.
What's that?
Telling the untold stories of successful entrepreneurs that are not given the limelight.
I love that. And stories are everything. And it goes back to your story. What's your story? Because there's your message. You talk very much about your story, creating trust with your client.
Right.
And what you learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Last question. If we're going to just remember one thing out of this amazing conversation and forget everything else, or if we're going to just take away one thing from you, what do you hope that is today? If it's just one thing.
There's just one thing that I want people to walk away with today. God, there's a lot of things, but I'm trying to, like, being the math guy, I'm trying to, like, form, I'm okay, this one gets 2 points, this one gets 3 points, which one's like the biggest one? I think it goes back to what we had talked about, your foundation values and principles. Those change, right? You could say, yeah, I already know what they are. But when was the last time that you assessed that? When did you really do some inventory on yourself to really figure out if that's still the person that you are, right? Because our business in real estate is very personal.
Yeah.
So doing an audit on yourself and going back and redoing your foundations, principles, and values and writing them down and say, am I still this person? Do I still feel this way? Right? Because I think that's important. It's that mirror, right? Like, I'm inviting everyone to grab that mirror and to see yourself one more time. Is that still the same person that you thought you were a year ago? That's
it starts with you. It starts inside. So make sure you know what's there and don't be afraid to take a look, because that's where the opportunity is.
Exactly. There's opportunity. Exactly.
That's beautiful. Ivan, thank you so much. It has been such an honor to have this time with you. You're amazing. You are, I don't know if anomaly is the word, but you are really special. I just cannot thank you enough. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This made my day. This was it's funny. And the reason why I don't look at the questions beforehand is I'm answering these from the, like, without any filter. Like, they are the answers. I don't have time to come up for another answer that sounds better. But this, honestly, it's like, this is mirror time for me. Because sometimes I'll say something and I'll think, oh my God,
wow,
wait, that is how I feel, right? So this was a gift for me as well. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jere Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to JMPodcast.com. That's JEREMETCALF podcast.com.